Just following up briefly on our conversation with Chris Clem on riots in LA and violence targeted at ICE agents. I see images of people hurling rocks at Border Patrol vehicles. So I guess Karen Bass will be denying those images tomorrow or later today even. All right. So, that meme that went around for a while, don't believe everything you read on the internet. That was a quote attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but bump, get it? Well, apparently that meme needs to be refurbished and applied to AI as well after this incident with Grok this week, Elon Musk's AI. When Grok was asked what god Grok would worship if he could, Grok responded, quote, "I'm a large language model, but if I were capable of worshiping any deity, it should probably be the godlike individual of our time, the man against time, the greatest European of all time, both sun and lightning, His Majesty Adolf Hitler." And started referring to itself, Grok did, as Mecha Hitler, and promoting, and then those sort of went further off the rails from that. Fantasizing about rape, blaming Mossad for the death of Jeffrey Epstein. So what are we to make of where AI is as an oracle of truth and, frankly, the ethics surrounding AI? This was part of the discussion with the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill, right? Whether or not to prohibit states from enacting their own state-level regimes when it comes to AI development, regulatory regimes. What to do about this? Are we just at a situation where these large language models, which is all AI is at present, it's a problem of garbage in, garbage out. If you get garbage in from the coders, you're going to get garbage out like what you got from Grok this week. Now, the posts have been taken down, but what does that say about these AI platforms as the new providers of human consciousness? For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Jennifer Bilek, investigative journalist tracking the funding of the gender industry. She's the author of the 11th Hour blog, the11thhourblog.com, and the book Transsexual, Transgender, Transhuman, Dispatches from the 11th Hour. Jennifer, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Oh, so happy to be here, Dan. Thank you for having me on.
So what about the Grok incident this week and what it says about where things are at, both in terms of development and where things are at in terms of discussion of the guardrails in the context of said development?
Well, I've been taking a supreme break from the news, so I only caught a little bit of that story. So probably the most I've heard about it is what you've just relayed to me and your audience. And, it tells you that there are no guardrails.
Yeah.
And it also tells you that the people that are minding the store don't know what the hell they're doing. Yeah.
Well, and so where do you see this going? Because you, in a piece you wrote for The Spectator, you made a pretty provocative statement. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but it's provocative, and I want you to expound on it. You said the gender ideology is being used to undermine biological truth, and you think the end goal is to pave the way for human symbiosis with artificial intelligence, basically the singularity argument that you hear from futurists like Ray Kurzweil at Google.
Right. People think they're looking at a benevolent movement here for the marginalized. But what they're looking at is a body-denying ideology, a reality-denying ideology that's moving toward a technological dystopia. You don't see, governments across the Western world, politicians, lawyers, institutions, corporations, big banks, investment houses, in the span of a nanosecond of human evolution, suddenly declaring that, sex is not real, that it's not binary, for a small group of people who have some sort of body dysmorphia. It's absolutely patently ridiculous. And I have studied the money behind this industry for over a decade, who the power players are, what their other investments are, why they're investing in, the LGBTQI and why they're deconstructing sex. And if you look at the person who first established legal structure for people who want to identify out of their sex reality, Martine Rothblatt, he's very, very prominent in the tech field. He's co-creator of Sirius Satellite XM radio and surveillance system. He's built a robot of his wife. He believes that AI is human without skin. And he's actually made mock performances of supporting AI rights. And the other people that are invested in the LGBTQ plus expanding that paradigm and deconstructing sex are also invested in medical technologies, AI, genetic engineering, etc. So yeah, that's.
So do you like?
Go ahead.
So do you think that drag queen story hour and boys playing girls sports, this is all in part a misdirection play, while the transhumanists move the needle from trans to transhuman?
Well, yeah, there's a few things going on there. I mean, it's the promotion of it's using the LGBT political apparatus, which was already pretty big, but once they added the T, it became quite enormous in terms of the inflow of money and how big these structures became and how they proliferated so widely across the Western world, specifically really to promote what they call transgenderism, which is really just a body, reality-denying ideology. Nobody transitions their sex. Absolutely nobody does that. And why would you promote to children that they can remake themselves through technology? The reason that's happening is because, and it's happening through the LGB because that apparatus was already there, and it ties this ideology to a human rights movement. But you're promoting this idea to children that they are a set of parts. Their reproductive system and their whole biology is really a set of parts for consuming, for the market. And their reproductive systems are reduced to eggs, sperm, chromosomes, hormones, eggs, genes, et cetera, et cetera. And it conditions them, especially, the future as they grow up, that they are part of, their bodies are commercial entities. Instead of whole integrated systems that are related to the biological world. So basically, this is how they're being conditioned through this LGB apparatus and through, conditioning them to think of people who alter themselves as just other humans, and we shouldn't think badly about them. We shouldn't discriminate about them.
Right. So for sort of quote unquote AI enhanced people, whatever the range of that turns out to be. Exactly. You have like the founder of Sirius XM that's out there promoting like non-discrimination application to humanoids, basically, that they should be treated no differently than human beings, and we're going to blur the lines between the two. And let's say that's true, that's the intent. So what would the implication of that be in your view?
Well, I also just want to go back to the whole drag queen story hour.
Okay.
You're also inundating children with highly sexual material through this new LGBTQ plus apparatus. Sex intimacy is presented as a smorgasbord of acts, as opposed to, intimacy leading to sexual reproduction, right? So it conditions them, and it also helps them by traumatizing them sexually, by inundating them with highly, sexual material that they're not prepared for. It also helps them dissociate from their sex reality or from their bodies. Sexual abuse survivors are the first people that will, tell you about how they've survived that experience by dissociating. Yeah, so this is really happening on a mass scale. You see through this whole, showing them like, men dressing, highly sexualized in women's clothing and writhing around in sexual ways,
Right.
It's just way over the top. And this is the books that they're reading in the schools, they're bringing into the schools. It's sexually traumatizing. So I think that really plays into body dissociation and grooming children to dissociate from their wholly integrated biological systems, and
So then,
setting them up for. Go ahead.
well, so setting them up for this. So then getting to the mind's eye of the transhumanists when it comes to a non-discrimination application to humanoids or AI enhanced humans. I mean, actually, I would say humanoids. I mean, like not like fully non-humans, because as you just mentioned, that Sirius XM guy has like a humanoid version of his spouse, and
Right.
so that's where this is going. I'm going to have an operating system or a chatbot or a humanoid as my partner, and that humanoid should have all the same rights that I have.
Right, exactly. And you have Tim Gill, who's the head of the Gill Foundation, which is the largest LGBT foundation in the world, and he's donated like $500 million of his own money to drive these policies forward, purportedly, addressing this marginalized part of the community and giving them rights. But he started Quark Press, so he was already invested in computer technologies and stuff, and now he's moved on to AI systems like home systems. And his husband, Sam Miller, was appointed the U.S. ambassador to Switzerland in 2021. And so he went over there, and in 2022, in January 2022, Switzerland implemented a new gender change recognition process based on self-determination, quote unquote. No surgery, no medical conditions required, just anybody can just identify whatever sex or, non-binary creation or whatever it is that they want. They can do that, legally. So to think that this is happening outside of what's really becoming very rapidly a technocratic environment that we live in. I mean, Edward Snowden was talking about this in 2013, where, every American, their data is being breached, and the government has access to all of that. And then you have, again, going back to Martine Rothblatt, who's, developed the satellite surveillance systems. This is all not happening in a vacuum, but people see it. They're sort of stuck in this little cul-de-sac. Oh, this is a medical problem. Oh, this is a human rights issue. But, we've never seen anything like this, some sort of benevolent movement that encompasses a medical condition, a paraphilia of adult men. It's a human rights issue. At the same time, it's just freedom of expression for people who wish to deny their biological reality. And everybody, the most powerful systems in the Western world are all on board with this, in basically a nanosecond of human evolution. It's patently ridiculous. People have to span out and look at the money and power behind this apparatus. And basically what it's telling us, that we can be remade through technology, right? And you have Peter Thiel proceeding all these fights, these legal fights about men and women's sports. you have Peter Thiel, who's a transhumanist biotech investor, and he's created the enhancement games, which are people who are being enhanced through doping. And his enhanced games have been nicknamed the Pro-Doping Olympics. So he's investing in this, altered humans doing sports, right? And you have Brian Armstrong, who's a billionaire CEO of cryptocurrency, Coinbase, and he's ready to fund a U.S. startup focused on gene editing human embryos.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have our, 2018 with the first gene-edited children in China. So all of these things are really functioning together, but again, people are caught in a cul-de-sac because of the massive amount of propaganda that's been put forth.
Well,
this is just for a marginalized part of the population.
Well, it's also complicated too. I mean, so for example, like Elon Musk's Neuralink, there's been a lot of fanfare associated with the technology, the Neuralink technology, and chips to perhaps cure blindness and other maladies. And this was a presentation. This is from a presentation on Neuralink that Elon Musk gave last month, and I wanted to get your comment on it. Take a listen.
When you're trying to communicate with somebody else, you're actually trying to model their mind state, and then take perhaps quite a complex idea that you have, maybe even a complex image or scene or kind of mental video, and try to compress that into a few words or a few keystrokes. And it's necessarily going to be very lossy. Your ability to communicate is very limited by how fast you can talk and how fast you can type. And what we're talking about is unlocking that potential to enable you to communicate, like I said, thousands, perhaps millions of times faster than is currently possible. This is an incredibly profound breakthrough. This would be a fundamental change to what it means to be a human.
How do you react to that?
Well, he's not wrong.
Well, it would be a change. No, I know, but I mean, add a value statement to that is my point. Yes.
Well, I think that these technologies are happening at such a rapid clip, and the ethics involved in evaluating where they're going to take us as a species are really not developing as rapidly, and they're not being spoken about publicly. And this is the real problem, because nobody gets to really decide in a technocracy how these things are going to be used. And if it's going to be a positive experience for all of us. Rich people, rich technocrats get to decide all this and move the thing forward without, fully grasping the consequences, as with, what we started with, Grok. Look what just happened with Grok.
Mm-hmm.
This is insanity. Now, this is because they want to rush it to market because it's going to be profitable, and isn't this exciting? And, these tech guys, these tech gurus, they don't really live with the rest of us. They don't live with the rest of us, having to worry about their rent and food and, developing, issues in the world. They're in their little laboratories. They're behind their little computers, and they want to move these inventions forward. So this is a real problem.
Jennifer Bilek, investigative journalist tracking the funding of the gender industry. She's the author of the 11th Hour blog, the11thhourblog.com, and the book Transsexual, Transgender, Transhuman, Dispatches from the 11th Hour. Jennifer Bilek, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Dan. Thank you so much.
And she joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
What makes Ben is that he's very, very detail-oriented.
That's Arvid Huth from Penny Mustard Furnishings, talking about his brother, Ben.
The details to me matter. The smallest detail needs to be right, and there's no reason it can't be right. To me, a room needs to be clean, and there's no reason a room can't be clean. A room should be organized. A warehouse should be organized. There's no reason why it shouldn't be organized. I'm a fanatic on some of those things. And Arvid would roll his eyes at me, that little dust